How are you? This is
I'm
this
good.
is great for me because I can't make it over to the shows, so I can ask you all
Why?
to
What's your excuse?
Western Australia. It's like the California of Australia, but it's miles and miles away. So
Okay. Well, sorry. Sorry to hear that.
that's okay. I'll get over to your side of the world soon and catch you up. I've been hearing great things about the shows. A lot of
Good.
friends have seen you in the US, so
Oh, good.
yeah. So I think people are in for a treat when you actually touch down in Australia.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna try to do I'm gonna try to do something different in Australia because in Australia, you know, most they didn't get MTV, so they don't know me from Headbangers Ball, except I know some people have seen clips. So it's sort of gonna be really going heavy on what Hollywood was like in the 80s and opening up the cat house. But I'm also gonna talk a lot about Headbangers Ball and bring a few clips. And it's just I mean, honestly, it's really exciting for me. I almost can't believe it's happening. And the fun thing about this show is we're going to also, you know, I'm going to DJ afterward and we're going to make it feel like the cat house was back then. So it should be a
Fantastic. Yeah,
blast.
I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds amazing. I mean, the first question I wanted to ask you was, when was the first time you actually set foot on the strip? Can you remember that night? The first.
It wouldn't have been a night because I grew up probably, I've never lived further, except now, I've never lived really further than 6 miles on the strip. And my father was a manager and he had an office on the Sunset Strip. So I was going on the Sunset Strip when I was a kid. I mean, I've always been on the Sunset Strip. So, I mean, 12 years old. It was always there. I mean, I remember things that, they used to have where there was clubs, there used to be a hypnotist, and then there was like a Dean Martin restaurant, and so much stuff has changed. And of course, Tower Records is gone.
Yeah,
And I remember when the Viper Room used to be called the Central, but what a lot of people don't remember is it used to be called FM Station. And I even remember that as a kid. So there's a lot of stuff that I remember that I was on the Sunset Strip, probably 12, maybe even
wow.
younger.
It's changed so much, though, hasn't it? I mean, the liquor stores near the Viper Room's just about to go, and that's going to be a high rise. It's that cultural heritage that I think in the UK people have lost a lot of that with places like the 𝗚𝘂𝘁𝗵𝗸𝗏 Club and stuff, and it just makes you wonder. I mean, 𝗏𝘂𝘁𝗁's, I guess, sort of changed, didn't it? The Cat Club, I went to have a look for. It was already closed down by the time.
Yeah, that
I,
closed. That was only open for a short time. That was closed.
yeah,
And the sad thing is, we used to go out on the Sunset Strip on like a Friday or Saturday night, and the Sunset Strip was packed with people, maybe not even going to see a band. It's just like you would go out and walk up and down the Sunset Strip, and every band would be out there passing out flyers, trying to promote their band. And there was an energy and there was like a whole vibe, and it was crazy and decadent. And, if it's 2 o'clock, if you're going to a show, then 2 o'clock you meet in the Rainbow parking lot to see if it's too late to get something going. And there was and people dressed in all different styles and just walking up and down the street. And now you go on a Saturday night, it's a ghost town. I mean,
yeah.
there is nothing, there's no energy, there's no fun. Even if I walk into the Rainbow, it's just not the same.
No, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, like last time I was at the Rainbow a few years ago now, I think I went on a Thursday night and I think there were three people in there, which was,
And it used to never be like that. And you used to go there and like, oh wow, there actually are rock stars here. And it's just a real shame.
yeah,
And
it is.
and that whole scene will never come back, which is really bad.
It is, isn't it? But it's a wonderful time. I mean, I remember as a kid reading in the UK the old Kerrangs and hearing about your
Right.
exploits and all the bands that were playing there. And unfortunately, we got a few of those guys to give us a little taste of what it must have been like coming over. But it took me a few years to actually get over there. And I remember being so excited that first night walking out onto the strip and finding all the landmarks and almost sort of like knowing where everything should be because of what we'd read and what we'd heard about it. It's a place that I hope sort of continues. And then, of course, we did get bits of you on MTV in the UK, not so much in Australia, but I think sort of like early '90s. There was quite a bit there because you were there from '90 to '95, I think.
Exactly. And there were times that in the UK, they had the Headbangers Ball hosted by Vanessa Warwick. And I
Yeah.
think there were a couple times that we were at Donington and we were both hosting the show, which was kind of fun.
Mm.
So there was a little bit of maybe ours that kind of crossed paths.
Yeah. But you've done so much as well. I mean, I was just reading a few things about some of your interests. You've got you went into wrestling for a while, I understand.
Well, as a commentator, I was like a reporter. I never got into wrestling. That I did for a very short time. And I also worked in motorsports and racing. I mean, I had a nationally syndicated radio show where I'd talk about racing and play rock and roll. And I did that for 20 years. So there's all sorts of things. I've worked in some crazy things. I've been on, reality shows in America that were,
Yeah, the Rock of Love. Yeah.
Yes, Rock of Love, Daisy of Love, Charm School.
Yeah.
Those are kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's
And
just
you're an ordained minister as well.
well, yes, not a lot of people know that. I have performed, I think, 3 weddings, and
Yeah.
they're all still married, and that's nice. And I don't really do that much. I don't have a church, or I preach, or
Yeah. The church
I sent away for it in the mail.
the Church of Rock and Roll.
Right.
Let's call it that. It's yeah, it'd be great to have you over. Wonderful stories to tell. I'm sure there are some stories that, though, you might have to wait till a few people have maybe died or moved on before you can tell those,
Nope.
or is it
Nope.
open slather?
There's a lot of people that would be mad at me for this show. I don't care. It's true. These stories are what happened. And I don't mind telling these stories, and it's kind of cleansing for me to tell them. It's almost every show is like therapy for me, because I try to get all these things that happened in the past, and if I say it enough time, it'll ease it. I mean, I don't know if there's that much I censor. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I don't know if there's even that much that I censor in the show.
Wow. Okay, we are in for a treat then, in that case.
I think the show was in America, it's pretty long, so I had to cut out a lot of stuff. So there was a lot of stuff that I had to cut out because it just got to be too long. So I can't think of anything that I really leave out. If I leave out, it's just because the show's too long and I'm saving the good stuff.
Okay, that sounds good. A few years ago, you also did the Cat House Live things over in the States. The concert. I was going to ask you about that.
It was a nightmare. I did it with the biggest promoter in America. They sort of took control of the booking of the bands. At the Cat House, I have a certain style that I like, a kind of type of music that I like. And they're the biggest promoters. So they just started booking all these bands that I didn't like, and had one band headlining that I really don't think should have been headlining on this show. Bands that had nothing to do with the Cat House, and it was just a nightmare. And to some people that went, that are probably thinking like, "Oh, that was incredible! You had 14,000 people there." It wasn't that great for me because I didn't feel it represented the Cat House brand. Yeah, I think the people that went there had a good time, but yeah. I'm not happy. I'm not going to work with any big promoters anymore.
So would you be tempted to do it again, but the right way?
It's really a tough job, especially now. It's so hard to get people to go out. I wouldn't mind doing something, but it's very difficult, and it's so stressful because you might put on a concert these days and nobody shows up. And ticket prices are so expensive that people just don't go out, and everything you want is on your phone. So people just don't go out like they used to.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is a tough gig. Let's hope that your tickets are selling particularly well. I think they are.
I hope so. I have no idea. I don't know what to expect. I just the whole concept of everything, it's pretty incredible. I brag about it all the time out here. I'm like, yeah, after I finish in Nashville, I've got 4 shows in Australia. And they're like, you do? But almost my show, which is fairly new, it sort of adds legitimacy to my show. It's like, wow, you're doing it in Australia. I'm like, yes, I am.
We love it. We're sort of rebuilding that scene here. We got some great local acts, and we all love the bands. We got Skid Row over this week. They're over. There's some great bands from back in that day. As someone who was there on the scene, are there any bands that you thought were really going to make it big that didn't?
They weren't metal, so to speak, but I always thought the London Choir Boys would have been a huge band. They didn't do anything in America. I thought they would have been like a big pop crossover band. I really like them. There's certain bands like Junkyard that I really enjoy that never really made it that big. I still think Faster Pussycat is better than people think. I mean, for me now, I listen to a lot of heavier bands. It's funny, as I got older, I didn't get mellower. I listen to heavier bands now. I listen to bands that most of my friends don't even like. But I mean, there's certain bands I think that I thought would make it big, but the Choir Boys just come to mind because I thought they were going to be like arena bands, and they weren't.
Yeah, I mean they made it quite big domestically in the UK, but those first couple of albums, and I think you're right about Faster Pussycat. The quality of the songs on those first three albums is amazing. So it's good to see
And
that.
he's a great songwriter. I think he just got pigeonholed, like they were going out on tour with like all these 80s kind of cheesy bands, and he got lumped into that, and people never took his music seriously. They all look at that. And I like the band. I've seen the show recently, and they're better than they've been in a long time.
Yeah.
So that would be a band that I wish would have made it a little bit bigger, or even people give him a chance, because he's still putting out new music that's really good.
Yeah, we had him over last January with
I know.
the same guys that are bringing you over. So it all ties in wonderfully well. You were a singer back in the day as well.
I sang in a couple bands. The first band I sang in was a band called Virgin, and they were like an 80s strip band. And then I sang in a band called Battery Club that just had a bunch of guys from different punk rock bands. And we went out on tour. We did probably about 6 or 7 shows. It was really fun, but I needed to make money, and I wasn't going to make any money in any of these bands. And I think with the punk band that we started in like 94, we might have been even though punk, of course, has been around since the 70s, but we were a little ahead of our time before all that stuff. I mean, I remember talking to my friend Jay Bentley, who's the bass player of Bad Religion, and I was like, hey, let our band open up for you. He's like, we already got a band opening up. I'm like, who? He's like, oh, this band Green Day. I'm like, who the hell is Green Day? Just give us the shot. So I always loved playing music, but I think I'm just not that good.
Okay. There's a few. First time we speak to anyone, we always ask them a couple of questions. So everyone from, I don't know, Billy Gibbons to most of the guys who frequented the Sunset Strip back in the day, I've asked these questions to. If you could have been a fly on the wall for the creation of any great album, any point in the history of rock and roll, what would you love to have seen being made? What's that one special album or the album that intrigues you?
Well, I was there for a lot of the Guns N' Roses stuff. It might not even be a metal record, because I've had a relationship with all these metal bands. So I was there for a lot of it. It might even be like, I hate to say it, but it might be Paul McCartney and Wings, Band on the Run. I mean, I know that's an old album, and that's not an album. I think it'd be cool to see ELO record an album, because they're just such great big sounds. It'd be neat to be in the studio when Slayer was recording their first album. Something like that would be really neat. And just see, these young kids that are about to do something pretty amazing.
Yeah. As someone though who has sat in the studio for a few recordings myself, it is quite boring, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it takes too long. It takes too long. I mean, that's the whole thing about all the recording. Oh, it'd be so cool. It's like, it is so monotonous, just sitting there all day to get a drum beat.
Yeah. So which Guns N' Roses albums were you in there for?
Well, I sang background vocals on the Spaghetti Incident.
Yeah.
And we were all hanging out. I'm sure I was in there a couple times for Appetite, not Use Your Illusion 1 or 2. Probably for Appetite, and I did background vocals on the Spaghetti Incident.
Yeah. Why do you think it was that Appetite sort of blew up so much? as compared to other albums of the era that were probably as good, if not
Not as good.
quite as. No,
People have told me, like, you know, that they saw Guns N' Roses and they knew they'd be big right when they saw them. I didn't think they would because they were too good. Bands that are like that come out with, you know, It's So Easy and Out to Get Me and Jungle and the Hits. Those bands that's strong music. Like, it's too good to be one of the biggest rock and roll bands in the world. So when they got bigger and bigger and bigger, I was really surprised because I love the band so much. And usually the bands that were so great never made it that huge. Motorhead never made it that huge.
Mhm.
Guns N' Roses did, with some pretty controversial and just really good sounding songs. So I was always surprised they made it that big, but they deserved it because the album Appetite is just an incredible album. I love that album.
Yeah, there's not a bad track on it. I remember when I first saw them when they first came out of the UK, and in those early days, they'd already had a couple of singles out that had sort of like been around the edge of the charts, but it was Sweet Child that sort of really launched them for us.
My
in
least
the
favorite,
UK.
my least favorite
I
song on the
know, I know, it's incredible, isn't it? But that was the one that sort of propelled them, and then there was the Donington and all that kind of stuff, and all of a sudden the band that I first saw in front of I think it was 250, 350 people in Rock City were sort of like the biggest band in the world. You sort of almost felt cheated by that.
Yeah, it was really weird for me to realize how big they were. Even probably 8 months ago, I live in North Carolina, and Slash came out to Charlotte, and me and my wife and him and Megan, we went out to dinner, and I'm like, should I get a table for 4? He's like, I'll take care of the table. We have to get a table for 5. I'm like, 5? He goes, I have a guy that goes with us, just sits at another table. And I'm like, you have to bring a bodyguard with you everywhere you go, not realizing, yes, they do, because they're the biggest rock and roll band in the world. So it's still weird for me to realize how huge they are. The first time I went to a sporting event and they played Welcome to the Jungle, I'm like, oh my God, they're playing Welcome to the Jungle at a sporting event, not realizing, of course they are. They play them at every sporting event to this day.
Yeah, it's incredible. And they sell out packed houses whenever they come to Australia. It surprises me that rock music's so much in the background when some of the biggest acts in the world are still rock bands.
I agree.
It's a mystery. Any new bands on your radar that you think we should be checking out?
Well, the new bands for me aren't new. Like, if I listen to a band that's 10 years old, it's new to me.
It's new.
I really like Amon Amarth.
Yeah, they're great.
They're so much fun. I like, well, the album didn't do anything. And I'm listening to this record, and it's probably 4 or 5 years old. And it's The Damn Things, which
Oh,
had
yeah,
Scott Ian
yeah.
from Anthrax, Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die, and I think
Mm.
a guy that was in like Fall Out Boy or something. And that record was just so good. As far as other new bands, there's a band called Unto Others that I really like.
Okay, I'll check those guys out.
Yeah, Unto Others is metal, but has like a really kind of 80s goth new wave feel to it. I really like them a lot.
Yeah, I was just listening to the new 69 Eyes, and they're a band that I think sort of like got that crossover between goth and sort of like metal particularly well. Their new album was fantastic. Do you have any other aspirations? You've got your coffee. I was talking to a guy and told him that you could buy Cat House t-shirts online the other day, so he's putting an order for one of the
Huge.
t-shirts.
It is huge. And during COVID, we couldn't ship to Australia. We
Yeah.
couldn't ship. There's most places we couldn't ship to. It's amazing. And that's why I never sold the licensing right, because I always wanted to have control of everything Cat House. And it's amazing that Cat House stays a small company, but that we ship t-shirts all over the world. And all the shirts come out of my office. We don't have a distributor or licensor. And it's very flattering. And when I go to my shows out here, and I always see Cat House shirts in the audience, I was like, wow, like what I created in 1986 still has a legacy. And I think because I never sold them in stores or in department stores. That's why they're still cool to wear, because they're not everywhere. I mean, you know, John 5 wears one still, Slash wears one still, Alice Cooper, Robin Zander for Cheap Trick, people that I never would have guessed would wear Cat House shirts, wearing Cat House shirts. And it's very flattering. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. What was it like back in the day? Take us back to a sort of like a night at the peak of the Cat House. What could we expect?
The easiest way to say it is the cliche: sex, drugs, rock and roll, because it was a lot of sex, it was a lot of drugs, and it was rock and roll. We all thought that we were invincible. We lived dangerously. It was hedonistic. Is that a word?
Yeah, yeah.
It was just absolutely crazy. We were in this playground living this dangerous lifestyle, but it kept on working for us. So we didn't see any reason to slow down. And it was just brilliant. It was just a magical scene, and it'll never, ever come back.
One of the questions I really wanted to ask you, I asked you the first question right at the start, but the other one I really wanted to ask you, because you were there, I guess, for it, was, did you see grunge as the end of what people sometimes call hair metal, or was it something else?
I don't say hair metal ever, and
No,
I don't really say the word
I hate
grunge.
it. Yeah.
Nirvana was a band that we all listened to. I mean, Soundgarden sounds like Sabbath sometimes. Alice in Chains were one of the best bands on Headbangers. Not the best, but they were part of the best episode of Headbangers Ball. So I don't say it. And here's the thing that people say, like, yeah, grunge killed metal. Really? Well, if your scene is so hard and strong that these guys came from Seattle and killed it, then your scene wouldn't have been that strong. If you're a metalhead and you buy only metal, you keep on buying metal, you keep on going to shows. If some of your metalheads went to Nirvana, then that's something about your scene. It became more popular, but when I listen to a lot of bands, I like them before they were popular. Why do they need, you know, my favorite band is Motorhead, but Motorhead does not need to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in order for it to be legit. And it doesn't need, and the bands that I listen to aren't the biggest selling bands ever. And just because they're not the biggest selling bands and something else is, I mean, that's like saying that, you know, Taylor Swift is killing the Metallica record. It's not. It's just, if your records are selling less and less and less, blame it on it's not that good, or people just aren't into it anymore and people have moved on. But to say that grunge killed metal, first of all, metal's never been dead. Yes, MTV was giving more exposure to those bands because they were more popular. I don't think never thought the scene died away.
No, I think people are. I think one of the things you said there is true. I mean, for me, it was never exclusive. It was like good music's good music. You listen to what you love, and you stick with it. But the more that you listen to, the more, I guess, your view of music changes. I mean, I can listen to stuff from the 50s to last year, and there's great stuff out there if you just prepare to look. We always close with a really easy question. So before you get on that plane, what is the meaning of life?
Did you say an easy question? That's the hardest question it is. I would say fulfillment, and it's not fulfillment of materialistic things. It's getting what you need. Sometimes you don't even realize what you need, and just being able to relax. I'm so stressful. I'm working so hard. You know, I set crazy goals, but achieving those goals wasn't like, I think just being able to, the meaning of life is being able to sit back and say, this is good. Like satisfaction is the meaning of life. Looking at what you've got and being satisfied. You can always reach for more, but looking back and appreciating, that's the biggest mistake I made. I didn't appreciate what I had. So for me, life is getting to a point where I can just relax. I mean, my favorite thing to do is ride motorcycles. So riding, you know, I've ridden coast to coast in America 14 times. So that's a life.
Yeah, you raise a lot of money for charity for that as well.
I raised a lot of money.
You do that every year, don't you?
Yeah, not this year. This is the first year that I didn't do it because I wanted to do these shows. So I'm happy going out on tour. And when I do another ride, I'm not going to, I mean, I've raised almost $250,000 in American dollars. That's a lot of money. And I don't get any attention for that stuff. And I don't do it for the attention. I do it because it gives me great satisfaction. But I donate every penny that comes in. So that means these rides are costing me like $20,000 because I don't take money out for gas or hotels or any of that stuff. So yeah, I think whenever you're at ease, that moment when you just feel like, that's what life's all about, those moments where it's not the stuff going on. It's just like, and that's what I'm striving for, to have that really soon.
A time for reflection. It's wonderful. Can you leave us with one of your favorite memories of Lemmy?
Oh boy, I have so many favorite memories of Lemmy. One of them that I always remember, they were the last band to play at the Cat House. I have 2 Motorhead tattoos. There was one of my memories was kind of goofy. I had a barbecue at my house and Lemmy showed up in the shortest denim shorts. I mean, they were so short, and he had a jacket with no shirt on underneath. I had this antique Indian like tomahawk that was on my wall, an Indian tomahawk. And somebody said, Lemmy's took it off the wall and he's trying to smoke weed in it. I was like, it's Lemmy. And then he says, hey, make sure nobody pushes me in the pool because I got my speed in my pocket. And he was just like, make sure nobody pushes me in the pool. And I just remember Lemmy in those shorts at my house. But there were so many times he was just a great person. And I love that band. And I would say, I mean, I have right over there, I have like a little Motorhead shrine where I have Motorhead statues and autographed pictures of him from me and Lemmy in 1990 and pictures that I took with Lemmy, 2 months before he died. Yeah. So he's always been a very special part of my life.
Yeah, he was always great. I remember sort of hanging out backstage at gigs when I was a kid, like 14, 15 years old, and he'd always take time to come and talk to you. And he'd always say something that afterwards you would think, hey, that's like really profound.
He was very intelligent.
He's a great guy, and one of the finest bands I think come out of the UK ever.
I agree 100%. When I was in the late 70s, I listened to punk rock and I listened to Motorhead. And then as I got older, I got to hard rock and I listened to Motorhead. Then I was into metal. Then I was into thrash. Then I was into speed. Every kind of genre I ever listened to, Motorhead was that type of band. Like Lemmy said, we're Motorhead, we play rock and roll, but they fit every type of style of music. And that's what made them so great.
They do. I always remember when they brought _Twisted Sister out of the UK. I mean, they were some wonderful shows. It was fantastic. We do have one thing in common. They say there's like 6 degrees of separation or whatever, but we were both in the Bang Tango movie.
I don't remember what I think I didn't say anything that nice. I think the question I don't know if they put it in, but I think the question that they asked me is, why was Bang Tango not as big as Guns N' Roses? And I was like, because they weren't as good as Guns N' Roses. But Bang Tango was a fun band. They played a lot of Cat House stuff, and I do like Bang Tango, but they weren't as good as those other bands.
No, I just love the bass-driven first album. It's fantastic, a little bit different. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's been great. You've given me a little taste. I might see if I can dig into the pocket for that plane ticket now and come out.
You should. You should.
No worries. Thank you, Riki. Take care.
Okay. Man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.